Hello and welcome to ET Auto. Across boardrooms in automobile companies around the world, electric vehicles today is the buzzword. Now our planet is at a tipping point, global warming is a real threat, and fighting it is a real war. One way to do it is obviously to reduce carbon emissions. And to reduce carbon emissions, you need to almost negate any tailpipe emissions in automobiles. Now, but basically this is a very difficult proposition for legacy companies who have invested in IC technologies for over 100 years. One company in India that has embraced it in a very wholesome manner is Tata Motors. In the Nexon EV, though on a small base, we can safely say we have the first bona fide successful electric vehicle, four-wheeler. Today with us we have Mr. Shailesh Chandra. He is the President of Passenger Vehicle Business Unit of Tata Motors, and he has been one of the proponents of the electric vehicle plan at Tata Motors. Shailesh, very welcome to ET Auto. To start off with, I would like to ask you this: there are so many challenges when you talk about electric vehicles, and Tata Motors was one of the first early entrants into it. But at the same time, you are also invested very heavily in petrol and diesel as well. How does this whole complementarity work, in the sense that if you are going into EVs at the same time when customers are also looking at petrol and diesel, you are basically acting against each other? As a company, how have you managed to ensure this transition is smooth?
So thanks for this question, as well as pleasure interacting with you, Sumant. See, the question is not how we are managing, but it is about how we are planning to transition to something which is imminent. For all the things that you talked about, the triggers of what is really shaping the direction towards electrification clearly shows that you have to move towards electrification. And for companies like us, who also have lived in the world of fossil fuel based ICE engine, as we call them, ICE vehicles, have to sense the change, and when you sense the change and when you start acting is the only choice which is in the hands of the incumbents.
Right.
And we sensed it at a certain stage that this shift is imminent, and the shift, if you have to manage the shift, it is not only about working on the technology, which is the product technology, but it is a massive work of awareness creation, as at the same time the whole ecosystem development, and also being very cognizant that you might invest ahead of its time, but if you don't, then there's no starting point for you, and the learning curve is going to be so steep that the treadmill will become very fast as far as learning curve is concerned. And therefore we decided that we need to enter into this early, because if you really see specifically the Indian market, right, the challenges of this market is very different than what you see across the world. We have 14 out of 15 most polluted city in the country, and then you have the issue of fuel import and all. From all the directions, if you see, it is clearly making sense, that as an OEM, and which is fully committed to the Indian market, right, is taking this early move into this. So that's the reason why we decided that we will get into this, and while the transition is not going to happen overnight, we'll have to see how we balance the investment in the ICE world and the EV world. And this has been our journey so far in the last 3-4 years, and we have tried to see how we accelerate things on EV side, and see how we also manage the ICE.
So when I look back at the time when Tata Motors started investing in EVs, that was also the time when you were very deep into your own fight about striking a revival for the company. You were trying to claw back your market share, and being in the top 3 was the main priority at various points in time. So you were, at the same time, you were investing in petrol engines across your lineup, because you had a diesel heavy portfolio. Now, to take that call that early in the stage must have been quite risky, if I can say so. What what gave you that conviction? You could have probably waited for 3-4 years, like most other car makers are today waiting, and then gone into EVs. But you decided very early that EVs you want to have a major play. Where did this conviction come from?
I would say that this has been what Tatas have been, which is an opportunity to build the nation. And I think given all the challenges which I spoke about, we clearly thought that this is the direction for the country to, and especially given that transportation has a contribution to the issue that the country is facing, we have to take a proactive call. So frankly, if you see, it was not limited to Tata Motors. It was expanded to many other companies in the group, right, in the whole ecosystem journey. So that gave us more conviction, because if you enter electrification, the biggest challenge you are going to face is ecosystem. And as an auto manufacturer, you cannot do it alone. When we saw similar kind of responsiveness from other group companies, it gave us more confidence.
Okay.
And clear direction from the leadership of the group also, and the commitment that we saw, it gave us confidence that we can go, absolutely full hog as far as electrification is concerned. Now the question was how we manage both, right? And the way we did it is that we created a ring-fenced entity within the big company. And if you remember, I started as the EVBU EVBU head, and we had a very small team actually, and literally worked like a startup within a big organization. And our life and death was electric, right? And that gave us agility, and we were fully empowered, we were fully resourced, and we were fully supported in the organization. And so we also had the advantage. On one side, it is, one can say, it's a baggage that you are in the old world of ICE, and therefore how you play in the electric. But the benefit that we saw is that there were a lot of assets which could be utilized on the ICE side to really start the journey on electrification. We have piggybacked on the investments of the PV, which is the ICE world.
The synergies that
the
you
synergies,
had.
whether it is the value chain synergies in the manufacturing side, on the supply chain side, on the network side, right? We have fully leveraged that. And that is the reason why we were able to think about, conceptualize, and attain go-to market within 16-18 months, right? And you see the success that we have been able to attain. Somebody could have made a product in this short period of time, but making a market success without the benefit of a wider network was not possible, right? So we created an agile entity within this and made them focus only on ensuring that the electrification initiative was made a success, and it was driven in an agile way. It was supported well through resources, and it took the advantages of what were the underlying assets, including, I'm saying, we went for a conversion product. So you actually utilize the investment of an architecture which was already existing, which was electric ready,
Right.
and you utilize that to convert that. So you actually did it on a fraction of what otherwise you will invest in a full a native EV or a full car. You would have just done in a fraction of investment, and let the market start understanding the world of electric and technology from a consumer perspective also, right? If you make very drastic changes which becomes very outrageous for the customers to understand and assimilate, it will not be a success.
Right.
So I think for us, having the ICE asset was an advantage, and also leveraging from different synergies in the value chain.
Before we talk about the future, obviously we will come to that. Can you take us through the journey with the two products that you have had, because these are two very, very starkly different kind of products. The e-Tigor to begin with, where you participated in the EESL tender, and in a way shocked a lot of people, because there was another player which was very dominant at that point in time. Everybody thought that probably they will have the head start, but you almost came from behind and took the carpet under their feet. And then you had obviously the Nexon. So did it exceed your expectations now that you see so much demand for the Nexon EV, and it has really in a way become symbolic with how passenger vehicle electric vehicles are likely to be in future? What have been the learnings, and how satisfied do you feel with the performance of both these products?
Yeah, so actually if I really reflect back 2017 when we participated for the tender, I would say we were half prepared. We had the technology which we had been working for quite some time in Europe also. We were also working with a startup in this space, and frankly we were not ready to participate in that tender, although we had some level of work which we had done to support that kind of tender. And when we went through the tender document, we felt that while it can be challenging to meet the timelines, but it was worth getting into that. And we therefore participated in the tender, and we were able to aggressively bid for it. And we had to tweak the specifications of the vehicle to meet the requirement of the tender. And the good thing is that we had that flexibility because we did not had a product already existing. So therefore we were able to optimize the product to therefore aggressively participate in that tender, and we were able to win that. The requirement was not that immediately you have to ramp up the production to a certain level. It was a very limited set of customers that you had to deal with. It was focused, you had to work with ESL very closely. The customers were also very understanding in case we did face some initial hiccups, as you face in technologies, but we immediately responded to that and matured the technology. We really came to also better understand the use cases in the market, how a customer actually is going to use the vehicle, and therefore how it kind of challenged the assumptions that we had taken as far as our design assumptions were concerned, and continuously matured that product.
It was a good testing ground for you.
Yes.
In the real world.
Also in terms of understanding the real situation on the ground, the climatic condition, how it really impacts your design, and also the poor quality of electricity, what kind of additional safeguards that you need to give. All those kind of learnings did come, and we translated all these learnings when we started working on the Nexon EV, right? Okay. As a learning, and at every stage of development we ensured that we were able to really avoid those kind of issues which otherwise would have overcome. So it is very important and very contextual that when you design an electric vehicle, it cannot be just a cut and paste of an electric vehicle which is running in a certain part of the world and you can just apply that in the country. You need to adapt the technology to the use case of the country. And that was a very good learning which supported Nexon EV, I would say. And when we started the work on Nexon EV, it was entering the personal segment, right? Unlike the Tigor EV, which was a low voltage solution completely focused on low cost of ownership, because it was meant earlier for the government, but then we extended that to a higher range vehicle which was 213 kilometer against 140 kilometers that the government had asked for in the tender. And it was successful because it met the requirement of that segment. But when we conceptualized Nexon EV, why we entered was for simple reason that if 10% of the market was fleet or shared mobility, even if you go for a very high penetration, you will be able to create limited impact. But if you address 90% of the market, even with a lower penetration, there's a higher acceptance and understanding of the technology. And always, we remembered that fleet segment is primarily the owner cum drivers, if you really see the fleet segment.
All of those issues are there. So which is why they say it's best to have fixed
I have many concerns on that. So there's a concern on the safety, right? Okay. Safety in the sense that you really need to get very high quality connectors. Because otherwise it can lead to leakage issues. Every time you're taking out and replugging it and it will wear, right? And if the quality of connectors are not very good and slight quality problem, then there's an issue there. That's number one. Number two, it's like running not a three-legged race, multiple-legged race. You have to standardize. it has to be used by all the manufacturers together. How you bring this kind of a coordination? That is number 2. Number 3, the battery world is changing so fast.
That you don't know
Chemistry is form
tomorrow.
factor.
Yes.
So a battery swapping investor will invest on the back of what? Then the concerns on the consumers, right? What it means. I bought a car. I mean, buying a car in India is not like moving from point A to point B. I own it.
Right. Right.
Right? Saying that
It's
you
an-
bought a
it's an
house but
asset
the
for
kitchen
you.
is
Yeah.
somewhere somebody else's.
Yes.
It
Yes.
might, that, we are trying to sell subscription. It itself is such a big issue to explain them that you will not own the car, but you will pay every month. So there will be a lot of issues coming from the consumer side also. When it comes to personal, I'm saying cars. In 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, 3-wheelers it is completely commercial. For them it is about cost. I'm saying they work on TCO. If you give them the best TCO, they don't worry whether battery is mine
Mine or
or
whose? Yeah.
In 2-wheeler, it is less of an emotive buy. It is for moving from point A to point B.
Especially
it's
in
a very
scooters.
rational buy.
Especially on scooters. Yeah.
Yes, in cars it is a very emotional purchase. From our perspective, we would like to give differentiated performance. One manufacturer will choose something, the other one would do something different. In a Tiago, I might say, okay, I'm fine because I want to bring down my cost. I'm happy with standardizing it. In a smaller segment car, but in a higher segment car, I want to go for performance.
Yeah.
So there are many complexities. That's the next point. The last point is, today we are discussing of swapping because of the acquisition cost issue and the charging time. If both are addressed, then what is the life of this business model?
And they will improve over a
It
period
is.
of time.
It
Yeah.
is going to improve. Once you have superchargers, and once you have the costs which are within the zone, why there's a need to detach things?
Probably my last question is on the issue of the various parts and components that go into an EV, and one very critical part, which is lithium ion cells. That manufacturing has not started in India yet, and as the semiconductor shortage itself shows us that even if you are missing out on one part, it can completely throw the industry in a state of disarray, which we are finding right now. So for future, insulating us from such future risks, what is your thought that how can we address this issue of starting to manufacture lithium ion cells in India? How important it is for India, and how difficult will it be, because this is very high capital intensive business that we are talking about. Not many companies in India have the balance sheet to even start doing so. How do you think this point should be addressed in the EV ecosystem?
It is an imperative that the cell manufacturing should come to India for many reasons. First, that this is the major part of the cost of the electric vehicle, nearly 35 to 40%, and it will remain in that zone. Why I'm saying it will remain in that zone despite the cost of batteries coming down is because the range will increase, right? So therefore it's an imperative that this value addition should not be lost to any other country, given that today the automotive sector contributes to nearly 7-8% of the GDP, and a lot of value addition of today's, today the cars and other category of vehicles that we make is significantly localized, right? And when this transition happens, you should not lose the value addition out of the country, and therefore cell manufacturing is a big opportunity also. At the same time, it will be a big threat if we don't really localize it. So self-sufficiency as far as cell manufacturing is concerned, as this transition is happening towards electric vehicle, for me is an imperative. Okay. Now the question is that you mentioned that it is a very capital intensive area, right? This is the single biggest capital intensive area, and therefore it's a chicken and egg situation. Till the demand does not come to a certain level, people will not invest here.
Vary of investment.
So how you really break this logjam, and this is where the government is intervening through the PLI for ACC, advanced chemistry cells, and I would say that that will be the single biggest factor to attract investment in this area. And if I'm not wrong, 2 months back this has been passed by the cabinet, so now it is a matter of time that the RFQs
the bids come in. Yeah.
RFP will be invited, and people will be investing in cell manufacturing. I think that's the route for India to really drive.
Lastly, we are almost on the verge of the e-Tigor getting launched. You've already opened bookings. Only the price is what we don't know, and we will keep it at that. That you can announce whenever you announce. But what is the expectation now from e-Tigor, given the fact that you have seen such good demand for the Nexon EV, and I understand that the waiting period for Nexon EV itself has gone up a bit, like you mentioned, because of various schemes that have come in. Are you also facing some supply side issues for EVs too?
We are definitely facing supply side issues for two reasons. One is that the demand has got triggered because of the announcement of policies very sharply, as I mentioned earlier, right? 2.5 times within a matter of just 2 months, right? So that is one. So there is a huge demand upside that has happened. On top of that, the semiconductor issue has really hit some of the critical components. So as a combination, this is really hurting in terms of our ability to service the demand, and therefore the waiting period has increased to that extent. We could have made a choice of postponing because of the lack of supplies, but I think we are very actively working with the suppliers, and we have got the confidence. We have worked on various alternatives to improve the supply situation. With Tigor EV, I would think that if Nexon has reached a certain level, Tigor would be able to do similar, or if not better, given that it will be a more affordable vehicle as compared to Nexon. At least that I can declare. Price can still wait till the date of the launch, but it will definitely be more affordable while giving similar kind of performance, similar kind of driving range and all. So basis that, I expect that this is going to be a force multiplier as far as our demand for electric vehicles is concerned. And it goes with the intent of what I said, that we need to bring cars at different price points and different body styles for the customers of India, and this is what we are committed to, and therefore we should not allow this category of customers who like a sedan and who can afford a certain price point to be devoid of electric vehicles.
Thank you so much, Shailesh, for taking time out. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we will talk more and more, and the EV story will kick off from here. So all the very best for that, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sumant. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.